What's up, fellow Age Groupies? Welcome to another episode of the Age Groupies Podcast. I'm Mike Ergo, and along with my co-host Lindsay Hiken, we're here to talk to you about all things related to endurance sports from an amateur athlete perspective. We talk about how to have fun along the way and make the sport a little less intimidating. You all can follow the show on Instagram at Age Groupies, join the Age Groupies page on Facebook, and look us up by name, Lindsay Hiken and Mike Ergo on Strava. If you have any questions, comments, or topic ideas, feel free to email us, agegroupies@gmail.com. If you guys like the show, please leave us a rating and review on iTunes or those other places people get podcasts. I want to talk to you about UCAN Superstarch. UCAN is what I consume on the race course and for long or intense training sessions. Now, it's different than any sports nutrition out there because they use superstarch. Superstarch is a complex carbohydrate that doesn't spike blood sugar, delivering a slow and steady release of glucose into the bloodstream. Stable blood sugar provides steady energy to both the muscles and the brain and controls cravings caused by blood sugar lows. I recently used this to complete the Pandemic Man 70.3 using only UCAN, and let me tell you guys, I was surprised by how well it worked. Pleasantly surprised. I didn't need to use any gels, anything, just UCAN. And I felt great. I didn't feel bloated, didn't feel hungry, didn't have any of those intense cravings I get on the race course a lot. So I want you to try it out too. Learn about why you should feel the pursuit with UCAN and save 10% on all your orders by using the link in the show notes or entering the promo code UCANInspireMe at checkout. That's UCANINSPIREME at checkout. Thanks.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Age Groupies Podcast. And today we got an awesome guest, Tim Davis, the author of TRIPOLAR and ultra endurance athlete. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, it was. I've started your book. I'm in the first few chapters, but it's to start it out, laying it down, doing a double iron distance.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this guy's serious about it.
Yeah, I kind of, after I did my 10th Ironman, I was kind of like, well, what's next? And I had been looking at the USA Ultra Triathlon website, and Steve Kirby's the race director of the 3 ultra triathlons they have in the United States. And I was like, well, I'll try a double one, because they have them in Florida and Virginia, and they just started having them in Oregon, for a couple of years back when I did that in 2015. And that was the longest race I've ever done. That was a mission.
Yeah, God. I mean, Lindsay and I know what it's like to go through an Ironman, and to mentally put myself to double that is still, it's kind of within my scope of possibility in my mind. But what it's like when you start off doing a shorter event, that next big distance is kind of still the unknown. So it's hard to comprehend.
Yeah, I think the hardest part is races like that, and I've done several 100-mile endurance runs and a few 24-hour races, is it's nice when you start in the morning and the sun's up, but then the sun goes down, and about after midnight I start getting the yawns. And then thank God for caffeine pills, because that's what most of these ultra athletes do is we take some extra caffeine, or drink a Rockstar or Monster or something to get through the night. And it's just, there's definitely a few hours in the middle of the night where you feel like a zombie. But then the sun comes up, and it's like you kind of are reborn or reawoken, or whatever the right word is. And you get this energy from the sun being up again. And you're like, okay, it's morning time. A lot of us work out in the morning anyway, so it's like time to get going, and you kind of get this second wind. So it's nice.
A question about the caffeine. Do you normally drink quite a bit of caffeine? Because I just wondered if it could have an effect in terms of making you too shaky or overshooting the mark if you don't normally ingest caffeine.
I normally drink probably, one of these, I guess, 16 ounces in the morning. Sometimes I'll start a second one. And then in the afternoon, usually, I'm usually done with work at 2. And a lot of times I'll drink a Rockstar or Monster before my afternoon workout, because I usually work out in the afternoon on weekdays.
The answer is yes.
So I probably consume 400 milligrams a day or so, 200 to 400 milligrams a day on average, but during those races a little bit more.
Okay.
And actually what I try to do before those races is I try to wean down. So like the week or two before, I'll stop having my afternoon pick me up, and I'll just have my little morning cup and just one, to kind of So hopefully when the race time comes, it'll, my resistance or whatever, it'll help have more of an effect to keep me awake.
Okay.
Yeah. So I always diving back into the origin story of our guests, and how did you get started with all this? I mean, in your book, you cover your childhood, which to say the least was very rough, and helped kind of boost you into sports and eventually endurance sports.
Well, yeah, in my childhood, my mom had this rule. I'm the third oldest of 7 kids, and she had this rule where we're not allowed to play sports till high school. And I was kind of always a hyper kid with a lot of energy, and my older brother was 4 years older than me. And I mean, we had this love-hate relationship, but he took me everywhere, and we did everything together. And we were always going to play ball, basketball and football mostly, and he loved football. And so I was always really active. And in high school, I played a lot of sports. Then in college, I moved to the other side of the country, and I kept playing a lot of basketball, and I always liked running because I was good at track. And in college, I started running the marathon. If you get to one of the later chapters, I think it's chapter 7, it talks about my first marathon story, which is really funny because I decided the week of the LA Marathon that I'm going to go run a marathon, and I'd never run more than 6 miles before.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I was 18, so young, dumb, and not knowing too much about marathons.
I call it the Pippi Longstocking syndrome. I don't know if you remember that cartoon, but that was like a little cartoon where she would do stuff because no one told her she couldn't, and she didn't know any better. And so it would just happen. And so that's kind of what that is. Like, you just don't know. So it works out.
Yeah. And actually that's kind of been my mantra is like, well, to get me through all the different, races and new distances I've kind of set my mind on is like, well, if other people can do it, so can I, like that's always kind of been like my mentality, if other people out there doing it, then, if I train, well, now that I know that I need to follow a training plan, if I train right and hard enough, then I can probably conquer that distance too.
Yeah. And I love it too. And it's like, what's worst case scenario? You don't make it. You don't do it. No one's dying.
Yeah. At the end of the day, nobody dies. Nobody really gets hurt. I mean, your pride, or you get a little humbled, which I've had a few races where I didn't finish for various reasons. So be it stomach blowing up or just major cramping, or, sometimes mental fatigue too, just not having the right mindset going into some of these longer races I've done.
Yeah. So tell us about the name for our listeners of your book, Tripolar, and what that means and how it factors into how you approach sport.
Okay. Tripolar. I called the book Tripolar, and it's actually, the full title is Tripolar, the story of a bipolar triathlete. And part of my journey has been, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder at age 27. And I didn't know this, but, after going through therapy and working 12 steps, trying to get sober, I realized, they helped me realize that I was self-medicating with marijuana and alcohol, and for a little while, some more hardcore drugs. So when I finally got sober at age, I got sober at age 30, and I had 3 years and a couple months, and I had one more relapse. And so when I really finally got sober at age 33, in the first year, I gained a lot of weight. I gained about 60 pounds in my first year of sobriety. And it was when I decided, I stepped on the scale, I weighed 250 pounds, and I'm like, oof, I'm only 5'8", 5'9". This is a lot of weight to be carried for a guy my height, because I'm not that tall. And I was like, at 250 rounds up to 300, I got to do something. So I made a commitment to lose weight, stop eating seconds, and start exercising every day. And, 6 months later, I was doing a half marathon. And then, a few more months after that, I was doing a sprint triathlon. And I just kind of fell in love with triathlon after doing a triathlon. It was kind of funny, though. I went to my first triathlon in some big old Lakers basketball shorts because I live in LA now. And, had an old rusty mountain bike and a helmet with a crack in it. And I'm looking at all these other guys, and they got their skin tight, suits and their aero helmets with these like big plates in the back, and the fiber bikes with these weird handlebars in the front. I was like, what is all this stuff, And I ended up getting 16th in my age division, which, at age 35, I thought was amazing. And I was like, wow, if I really, get the gear and train harder, I could probably get really good at this stuff, and I lost a little more weight, got the gear. And, in some of the smaller races I did, I actually did get a few podium finishes, or at least top 10 or top 20 finishes, which felt good.
That's a good feeling.
Yeah. But I really got hooked after, in 2009 is when I really started my triathlon journey at about a year and a half sober, 2 years sober.
Yeah. So both Lindsay and I, come from a recovery background and understand that journey of getting into sobriety.
I got in at age 33. Good age to get in.
Hey,
Yeah.
ditto.
Yeah, I was just before 30, so it worked out pretty well. That journey though, it's when we talk about that addict mentality and wanting to hit things as hard as possible, smoke until the filter. like how do you balance that with sport? Because it seems like, it can become a new addiction. It can go too far. Like where do you find the ability to draw that line and find that wisdom?
Well, the long and short of it is with my wife.
Good call, yeah.
She keeps me in check. Because when I first really started, I really was addicted to triathlon. I found that, just regular exercise was really important for my mental health. But of course, with an addictive personality, I obsessed on it. And I wanted to do like races every weekend, and I was spending a little too much money. So, we looked at the budget together. And then when I got into longer races, I wanted to do like one a month, and some of these involved traveling where I'd be gone for 2 or 3 days at a time. And we have 3 kids. And at the time they were all, in high school or middle school. And she was like, you can't be doing these big trips every month. So we sat down, we negotiated, and I was allowed to do one big trip every quarter. So every 3 months, I was allowed to do a trip where it involved maybe traveling and being gone for 2 or 3 days.
That seems like a reasonable amount.
We compromised.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. I mean, because I wanted to do every month, and she didn't want me to be gone that long, because when I'm gone, she's like on single mother duty. So we compromised at once a quarter.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's nice when you can have that partner or person in your life that can help you pump the brakes, because I think all 3 of us can recognize, like when left to our own devices, we can easily go overboard.
Yeah. And it really was good, because, I sit there and weigh the pros and cons of it. I'm like, she's helping me make sure that my body gets some recovery time, which, left to my own devices, I might push it too hard, which I have a few times. And I've gone through dealt with overtraining syndrome a couple times over the last 10 years, which is really rough, because you basically got to take at least 2 weeks off, sometimes up to 2 months off before your cortisol levels recharge. If you guys have ever dealt with that, it's pretty rough.
Well, I was going to say, as a addict alcoholic person, I will, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this, but it's not even just that we'll do it too much and addictively. Like, I'll do the thing until I run it into the ground and can't do it anymore, or have ruined it in some way. Like I could do it until my body, until I get to the point where it's like, well, now you can never do this again because you've ruined all the discs in your back, or like, that's the kind of, that's my default setting, is like that. And it sounds, I can relate, like I can hear you talking and I'm thinking like, I can so relate to that. Like, I'll take this thing that I now love and ruin it by just hammering it into the ground, doing it every single weekend until now I can't do it ever again,
Yeah.
And I've lost my relationship and my kids hate me, and that kind of thing. It's like,
It's not still like that, is it?
Oh no, I
find more balance.
My body, actually it's like my body has taught me, and I ended up becoming going through yoga teacher training, and that helped me like get in tune with my body, and my body lets me know like, no, you're gonna actually chill out. But I had a few back-to-back Ironman training where I didn't even make it to the race. And so I was like perpetually training, because I would like not make it, sign up for another one, not make it, sign up for another one, because I was like overtraining and being crazy. So.
Yeah, I've had that happen too, where there are some races I signed up for, but it came close to race time, and either I pushed my body too hard and wasn't ready for the race, especially in the last couple of years. So I've been learning to do certain physical therapy exercises and to cross train more, and to pump down the volume a little, because I'm not getting any younger. I'm 46 now. I imagine you guys are a little older than 30 and 33 at this point.
I just turned 50, so I don't even want to talk about it.
Hey, the one thing my mother-in-law says, once you turn 50, you stop caring about everything less, or at least what other people
you don't
think
care
about
at all.
you less. So my wife and I are we're looking forward to 50, because then we're not going to care what people think about us anymore. So we got a couple more years of dealing with that.
It is true.
I'm curious, overtraining. How do you notice when you're overtrained? Is it just like a bunch of flat workouts in a row, or like is a bunch of, like, you get close to injury, or what is it?
I noticed, the flat workouts. The first time I dealt with it, I think, was in 2013, and I was actually training for my, it was 15. I was training for a 100-mile race, and building up to it, like the whole month before it, every time I went to work out, I just I didn't even want to start the workout. And when I forced through the workout, even if it was just a 5-mile run, like a mile into it, I wanted to quit, and it just had no energy. My energy levels were just shot. I ended up not doing that race that year because I just, I went to see the doctor, and the doctor, at first they said, you got something called viral syndrome. But then I saw a specialist, and he's like, oh yeah, you got OTS, and he's like, you just take a good, at least 4 to 6 weeks off, which I did not enjoy as an obsessive, addictive person. But I did what they said, and things recharged. And then I was, back into my kind of normal, training routine of like 15 to 20 hours a week of, working out and stuff.
Hey, can we just skip back again? You talked about being diagnosed as bipolar. I think you said at 27. And we talked a little bit about you getting sober. And so the diagnosis for bipolar came before sobriety, or was that like during your first try at sobriety, or kind of how did that like come about? How did you figure out that that's what was going on?
It happened. It was coming out of my third rehab. Actually, I tried to start getting sober at age 25 when my wife got pregnant with their first kid. And you know how the denial of this disease is so powerful. Didn't get it the first time. I like to say I'm a quick study, but a slow learner. And coming out of my third rehab, I had major insomnia. I was in there for 2 weeks, and I barely slept at all. And I just had racing thoughts, and I was in a real dark place where I thought, I don't know how to live life sober. I don't know how to live life not sober. And when I checked out of rehab, my wife was like, you're not coming back here because they keep telling you need to do sober living. But my mentality was, I've got a wife. And at that point I had 2 kids at home because we had my 2-year-old and a baby. And I was like, my wife and my kids need me. But I didn't realize that I was not mentally
not in that state. They don't need you.
Yeah, I was not in a real good recovery place to be a good husband and father. And I ended up, threatening to commit suicide. And my plan was to jump in front of a train. And I called my wife and my mom before I was going to go do that. And I said, you know what, you guys, the world's better off without me. And I drove over to the train tracks, but luckily they called the authorities and they swooped me up, and they put me in a suicide tank for a week. And, I settled down, and, that's when I saw a psychiatrist, and they did all the evaluations. And, I told them everything that was going on me. I was also having major anxiety attacks, which I didn't know what they were. I thought I was having like heart attacks. I didn't know what was wrong with me.
Yeah.
Chest pain was just crazy. And I was like, they did EKGs, like, your heart's fine, dude. These are anxiety attacks. And so that's when I got diagnosed with bipolar. And then I was just angry because I was like, I'm already struggling with trying to just get sober. And now I've got this other problem. And I didn't have any education on what bipolar disorder was. I just thought it meant I was crazy, which is like just one more thing's wrong with me. So yeah, it was really, it took me a few more years to accept that and, start becoming med compliant and both listening to my psychiatrist and really working the 12 steps, and putting it all together.
I was going to ask, like, did they explain what bipolar disorder was when you got diagnosed, or did it take you some time to understand what that meant?
They laid down the education for me. I was diagnosed as a type 2 rapid cycler. I don't know if you guys know, but the type 1 is the severe type that has like 3 to 6 month periods of depression and then maybe 2 to 3 months of mania. Those are the ones you see about in the movies usually, because those are way more severe. The type 2 is less severe. For me as a rapid cycler, I can, go from being on top of the world and ready to, become a billionaire to ready to kill myself all in the same day. Not anymore, because I've been 13 years sober and stable and med compliant. But, early on when I was struggling with the racing thoughts, anxiety attacks, and just maladjusted to life, if you will.
Yeah, I hear you as a fellow, type 2. I get it. I'm not a rapid cycler, but it's a struggle. It's crazy I didn't get the diagnosis until recently, I'd say within the last year and a half, but it's interesting before that, just to the confusion of knowing like, what is going on? What's my deal? Why is this happening all the time? Why do I feel good sometimes? And then without any change in circumstances, I feel bad. And it's looking for those external things to try to see like, what am I doing wrong? And then figuring out, oh, this is just brain chemistry.
Yeah, it is a relief, isn't it? When you figure out that's just brain chemistry.
Yeah.
I'm not bipolar. I just have depression. So I just go from down to neutral, but it's like, sometimes I go, I'd like a little up. If I could get a little up, that'd be great. Exactly. I have my one a day and that's all I could have. Otherwise I can't sleep. But, but yeah, I mean, just that I think all three of us can relate to you feeling like, okay, so I have depression or bipolar and alcoholism, like but I think they go hand in hand, because it's like that was the means of relief mentally before I found a way to live sober. And the physical activity that we get to engage in now, I think dovetails in nicely with all of that. Like it helps me get some of that angst out of my body that still just, I think, is related to mental illness. It's not, and like Mike was saying, it's not situational. So it's not like I can control my environment and decide, and that's going to like control how I feel. Like it just, I may just feel depressed. Like I may just feel anxious and I have so being able to get physical like activity, and then also not pouring the chemicals in. But I think, we were all just self-medicating. I mean, it's kind of a relief to be like, oh, all I need to do is take my meds, not drink, like, and get some, exercise and maybe meditate a little bit, and I can be a relatively normal person in the society.
It's great once we finally figure that out. I was just doing some research because, upon finishing my book, people told me, now that you've written a book, now what, you got to, and, other authors have told me you kind of got to have a platform for what your book's about. And I was like, I didn't really think about it. I'm like, what's the platform for my book? I thought about the title and I'm like, well, like if I had to sum it up in one sentence, what's the message I want people to learn from my book? It's that regular exercise is like really important or critical for your own mental health. And I think now more than ever, like in the evolution of humankind, 90% of us have sedentary jobs where we're sitting around all day. So I think, sitting around all day kind of makes us stir crazy and kicks up these mental health issues. So, and your body just, we're animals, and by nature, we used to be hunter gatherers, we were moving around and stuff, but we're not doing that anymore. So it's just like your mind going crazy because it knows your hormones need to get moving around and get those muscles moving and the blood flowing. So
amen to that.
Yeah. And I think, those of us with, any kind of mental health issues, we need a little bit more usually. Hence, why you're ultra Tim, not just regular Tim.
Yeah, not Tim in the gym.
Oh, yeah, I know. I used to be Tim in the gym all the time, but they've been shut down here since March in my area, in LA. So our numbers, we had the highest numbers since the pandemic. It's for the whole pandemic yesterday. It was like 7,500 cases in LA County yesterday. It's just,
this has been a tough year, especially for people with mental health concerns, because for me, I haven't had access to a pool steadily since March. I've swam in a pool 4 times. Trying to get reservations is pretty difficult. At least during non-working hours, if I didn't have a job, it'd be a little easier.
If we're all retired, it'd be great.
Yeah, I know. If we were all independently wealthy and retired, we could fit these things in, right? Or we'd have our own lab pool in our backyard or whatever.
Yep.
I know it's been frustrating not being able to get in the pool. I'm actually lucky. I have a small pool at my house, but now the water's freezing cold. So I haven't come in, in the last couple months. And man, I miss swimming because it's like, you beat your body up running and doing more heavy impact stuff. And swimming is always a nice, like, low impact, off day, cross training day, almost like a recovery day,
Yeah. And getting in every once a, month or less, which is what I've been doing, it makes it, that swim is not relaxing. It's not, you're just struggling through the water because I have like no fitness now in the pool. It's like,
I know. You always feel like you're trudging through mud instead of kind of flying.
I know.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah.
So, you're talking about your platform for your book, and, I'm just wondering kind of like what are your plans now in terms of pushing forward this message? Because I do think it's such an important, it's an amazing story to share, your particular story. And then, I'm all for, Mike and I are both all for, getting the message out there of connecting, especially around, for everybody, physical exercise is good for the mind, but especially for those of us who have extra challenges with mental health. And so I'm kind of wondering, what are your plans in terms of continuing to push the message out there, if any?
Well, I guess first and foremost during the pandemic is just to keep going on as many podcasts as I can, and just keep kind of networking. And, honestly, I don't know where this is going to take me. Some people think I should try to do more with coaching or speaking. And I'm kind of putting feelers out there to see where that'll take me. But until then, those aren't paying the bills. So I'm keeping my day job as a high school science teacher.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Do your students know, your other life as an endurance athlete?
Yeah, actually, I was at the same school for 12 years up until last year. Last year, I took a 1-year leave to actually pursue different career opportunities. And actually, that's when I got started writing the book. This year, I'm at a new school, and it's weird because it's all virtual. And we have this empathy rule where kids don't have to have their cameras on if they don't want to. So none of the kids have their cameras on. So I'm just staring at random profile pics, while I'm instructing class. So there's not as much of a, I guess, connection, an interpersonal connection when you're not seeing each other face to face. But during the 12 years I was at Wilson, and I was doing all these Ironmans, and I coached track there for 4 years, especially the track and field athletes were always, asking me about my races, and they thought it was like crazy, especially when I was doing these 100-mile endurance runs. They were like, how do you do that? I don't even like doing one lap, coach, and I was like, mind over matter, I guess. That's hard to explain,
That's awesome. We had in high school, we had an endurance, I had an endurance coach. Endurance athlete, ultra distance runner was my track coach in high school. And, he would do these crazy, there was an endurance race that went all the way around Salt Lake. This is like in the 80s, right? And he did that. And so people weren't doing these that regular. This was like the old school guys that people just thought they were nuts, right?
Yeah.
And the only thing, the thing that we just would laugh, because he would wear these tight, because think about 85, the shorts were like this long, right? He would wear them to track practice, because he'd go for his run and then he'd come back and do track practice or whatever. And we were just like, what's with this dude's shorts? He's an old man. He was probably like 35, you know what I mean? But we were like, this freaking old dude just with his tiny shorts and his nuts. And it's because he wasn't, he was running all the time. And now I understand. It's like, he would teach and then he would run and then he would do track, and that, because he was trying to get his workout in.
Yeah.
So you're that guy. So you're this dude.
Yeah, I am now. When I first started running in college, I was still wearing my basketball shorts because I played basketball up until I was about 35. And then my knees finally said, all right, we can't turn right and left anymore without a lot of pain. So that's why I just kind of fell into jogging and stuff where I'm going in a straight line without all the torque, turning right and left and quick stops and stuff. So, but yeah, now I wear the short shorts, but I have the long, what do you call it? The long underwear. Yeah,
that's good. Yeah. They didn't have that in 85.
So they don't have to see my bare white upper thigh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
A gift.
It's a gift for all of us.
Yeah, yes, it is.
What do you like better out of all the events you do? Triathlon, ultras, or do you have any preference?
Lately, the last several years, I just love running on the trails. So any kind of, trail race, ultra running race, just being out in the mountains with nature is just feels like a spiritual connection for me. Like I'm communing with God, I think it was John Muir who said, most people sit in church thinking of, on Sundays thinking about being on the mountains. He's like, I go out in the mountains on, every day, and that is my church. He's something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing. I'm like, and that's the way I feel too. Because I don't really go to church, but I go to a lot of 12-step meetings. But when I'm out in nature, I feel like I'm, just one-on-one with God and Mother Nature out there. It feels great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, there's something great about those trail runs. It's stimulating to the brain in different ways than just running on the road, because you have to constantly make those micro adjustments, every time you're hitting the ground, and just like feeling the trail, feeling the life around you. That there's nothing better, I think, than trail running, especially compared to road running.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's actually more low impact because the dirt's more forgiving than asphalt or concrete. Yeah. That's another reason I kind of gravitated toward it, because that pavement can beat up the joints.
Absolutely.
So that's another reason I like trail running more.
Yeah, the sense of just all of it, the breathing in nature and the trees and the you just, and then the better on your joints. And so if the world like righted itself and suddenly we could go do stuff, what would be like, I would say, what would be your first ideal event coming back, post COVID, in a world where you could just do any event, like in a normal situation?
In a normal event. Wow. Probably just keep doing the same stuff I'm doing. I mean, for me, I'm signed up for the Tahoe 200 mile endurance run in September next year.
Awesome.
Nice.
And I have not done that distance of running, So that's kind of my big goal for 2021. And they just had the Moab 240. It's the same race director that runs those races, and they were able to do it safely, just, even with COVID going on. So I know they had to cancel the Tahoe 200 this year, so they rolled over a lot of people. And honestly, when I signed up for the lottery, I'm like, well, they're rolling over everybody from 2020 to 2021. There's limited spots. I probably won't get in, but I may as well just throw my hat in there and see what happens. And somehow, I usually don't win these race lotteries, but I got in. So I guess God says I'm ready for this. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does that work out? Do you take breaks to rest? I mean, you're going 200 miles at elevation?
Yeah, it's 200, I think 5 miles with, I think 40 or 50,000 feet of gain over the whole course, but it's a 100-hour time limit. And I think there's 6 stations that are sleep aid stations where you can sleep. It's either 4 to 6 hours and then they kick you out of there. And if you're fast enough, then you average 50 miles a day and you sleep each night. Although I know some guys that are more my pace. I'm kind of in ultras. I'm kind of a middle to back of the pack runner now, and they've told me they didn't really have a lot of time to sleep if they wanted to make the time cutoff. So I'm hoping I can move fast enough to at least catch a few hours at each of those sleep aid stations and recharge a little. But we'll see. I'll find out in September.
That's awesome, though. I mean, I feel like that race, if I were ever to do one, it would be something like that, just because it's so beautiful up there. I mean, at least while you're there, even if you're suffering, you can look around and just be like, this is unbelievable. So pretty.
Yeah, I think that's going to be my mindset, is just enjoy the scenery, no matter how bad my body's telling me to quit running at certain points. Like looking around at all this stuff. I've only been up to the Tahoe area once, just actually this summer for the first time. Lived in California 30 years, and then finally went to Tahoe for the first time this summer. I'm like, why have I not?
Freaking amazing. So where does that race start? Where do you know where you start? Are you in the squaw area?
I think I can't remember. I don't have the race manual with me right now, but I know you go around the whole Tahoe rim trail, so you end up doing a huge, long and windy loop around the lake with a lot of other stuff added in.
Yeah, Tahoe rim trail. You're going to be just blown away because you can. I mean, I've been on parts of that trail, and yes, you're going to be doing a lot of elevation up and down stuff, but you'll be in the trees, but then you'll just be able to see straight down this hill into this giant open water. It's unbelievable. I mean, in September weather is
amazing.
Usually, I mean, that one Ironman they had there, it snowed, but that's not the normal. Normally it's perfect.
I had a friend in that race that year. He was like, I did not have the right gear for snow on the bike course and stuff. I was like, wow.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. Normally September is perfect weather. We always go up there in September because of the weather. So it's I think you're going to love it.
Yeah. Where are you guys located exactly?
Bay Area.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not.
So yeah, Tahoe is just a quick, 3-something hour jaunt away.
Yeah. I go up there all the time.
We're fortunate that way. So for you, Tim, what advice would you give people who are looking into endurance races that maybe either come from just a sprint background or just are getting into the sport and wondering about it, but not sure if they can cover that distance because it's the unknown?
I guess my best advice would be to try to build up little by little. For me, when I was doing sprint triathlons, I did a few of those, and then I was like, okay, I'll try Olympic distance. I did a few of those, and I'm like, all right, now I'll try half Ironman. And it kept building my way up, and I guess tweaking my training plans to add enough what I felt was reasonable volume to make sure I was prepared for those races. And so I know some people, I'll never even run a 5K, and then they sign up for a 100-mile race, and I'm like, what are you guys thinking?
It's insanity.
When I started ultras, I did a few 50Ks, and then I tried a 50-miler because there's not much in between 50K and 50-miler. And then I did a 100K, and then finally I'm like, okay, I guess I'll try a 100-miler. It's just build up. Don't jump from a real short distance to a really long distance. Try to gradually progress.
Yeah. Agreed. That Pippi Longstocking like mentality is kind of cool, but at the same time, it can backfire. Like, I saw it when we did Santa Rosa. What was it, 2019? I don't even remember when we did it, Mike. Yeah, I guess 2019. There were like, who's doing their first Ironman? There were a bunch of people, including myself. And then it was like, who's doing their first triathlon? And there were like not a bunch, but 5 or 6 hands went up. And I was like, wow. So you just skipped. And I mean, I guess on one hand, they don't know to be afraid, but on the other hand, my team manager was standing right next to me. He goes, well, they're going to be like one and done in terms of triathlon life. Like you come to the end of that and you're just like, yeah, this triathlon sucks, because you probably aren't prepared.
Yeah, I know. I think some people are just misinformed, and all they see or know about triathlon is the Ironman Kona on TV. So they think that. I think some people who are not that informed and haven't done enough of their own research think that that's the only kind of triathlon there is this full Ironman distance. And they're probably not aware of the sprint and shorter distance triathlons to get started with, and learn the ropes.
Exactly, and then you can make the mistakes like me of like bending over with like water dripping off you, getting it all over your sunglasses so you can't see out of them for the bike ride, or eating like 5 gels or something like that for a sprint triathlon in T2 when it's not necessary at all.
Yeah, you're gonna ride 8 miles, dude. Relax.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. I don't even take any nutrition in a sprint, and usually not during an Olympic either.
You don't need it, but you don't know when you're due. For sure. That's a good. That's why it's a good time to figure that out. Are you doing any? So when you were doing the ultra triathlons, I mean, are you thinking about doing some of those too? You mentioned Oregon. They're doing them in Oregon now, and
they didn't have it this last year, maybe the last year or two, but I found that I just don't enjoy being on a bicycle for that long, because bicycling is my least favorite of the 3 disciplines. I love swimming, I love running, and I even in my book, I often say this, that biking is just something I do to transition between the swim to the run.
I hear you.
So just sitting, I mean, when I did the Oregon Double Amble, it had a 39-hour time limit, and I DFL'd. I finished dead last, and I came in 7 minutes before the time got up. So it was 38 hours and 53 minutes. There's a lot of hills on that course, rolling hills, and the bike portion took me like 18 or 19 hours, and
wow, I can't imagine.
Yeah, I felt like, I don't want to get too graphic here, but I felt like Thor's hammer was just kind of wedged up into, my nether regions for at least the first several miles of the run before things kind of worked themselves out. It felt normal again down there. I was like, that's just the worst, sitting on a bike for that long.
Thor's hammer wedged into your nether regions. That's
But I have a lot of friends that do these things where they're doing like Deca, Ironmans and triple Deca. Like I know Wayne Kurtz, I read his book, this guy's, and then it's just amazing what some of these people are doing.
Yeah, I know some women that do those, and I can't imagine the bike either. I mean, that's probably because with the run, you could walk if you needed to. I feel like with the bike, you're still going to be seated, so with that one in Oregon, was it, and I know we're going to wrap up soon, but was it because I know some of these are like you do an Ironman and then you do another Ironman. Like for example, like Epic 5, it's like do an Ironman and then the next day do an Ironman. But some of them are the whole swim distance at once and then the whole run distance. So it sounds like the Oregon one was the whole.
Yeah, it's continuous. They usually call them continuous or one.
Okay.
So the continuous is where, in the double Ironman, you do the 4.8 mile swim, a 224 mile bike, and then just a short little 52.4 double marathon run.
Yeah. Exactly.
Do they have ultra? Maybe they need to develop ultra duathlons, like for people like yourself and like us. I mean, you don't want to ride. It's like maybe do like swim, because the duathlons would swim. Oh, well, that's swim, run, swim. No, run, swim, run. No, it's run, bike, run. But we could do something else.
Yeah. Well, they have other ones called aquathlons where you
swim
just
and run.
swim and run,
like splash and dash type, but long.
Yeah. I don't know that they have those. I know that Wayne Kurtz and those guys, they put on a Deca Iron race down in New Orleans, and they're doing another one. And he just did one in Pittsburgh too, because he lives in Pittsburgh. He did it at the first annual, he called it the Deuter. It's like a double ultra off-road triathlon where they did the swim, but then they did a 224-mile bike and then a trail run. So it was all bikes on the trails. And
Oh,
then
like
running
at
on the trails.
Xterra, but long.
Yeah, but it really, it was the first ever one that they know of that anybody ever held like that. I'm like, you guys are just.
That's a long day on the dirt. I mean, it's long on the road bike, but I mean, I just started mountain biking this year, and I could ride for hours, and I look at my Garmin, I'm like, I went 28 miles. Like, what the hell? Just.
Yeah, mountain biking is so much slower, with the up and down, and you're riding in the dirt or gravel. Yeah, you can't fly on the roads like you do with, the thin tires. And
But you do get that hit of the same thing as on the trail running, which I do appreciate more than on the road bike, which is like being in the mountains, under the trees.
Yeah.
Like you do get that kind of. And it's a slower, like if you're going way uphill, it's like you're in this like granny gear and you're just kind of cruising up. And so you do sort of get that feeling of communing with nature, but on a bike.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound like that's your thing though.
No, I do a little bit of mountain biking, but not very often. I probably need to get more into it because I also, me and a group of people around this area, we applied to be in the next Eco Challenge.
Oh, awesome!
Nice.
So, I mean, there were 5,000 applications this year, and they don't know when they're going to have it because of the pandemic. As of right now, they're talking about tentatively having it in November 2021, but I think it's going to get pushed back to 2022.
Did you watch the one on Amazon recently? Oh,
yeah, that's what inspired us to sign up.
I texted Mike and I was like, we need to do one of these days when your kids are old enough that your wife will let you go without killing you.
Yeah. I know it looks like, for me, but having done triathlons for so long and ultra so long, I'm like, this is something new and fun. And you're doing multiple disciplines, because in the Eco Challenge Fiji, they were, they're paddle boarding, they're kayaking, and then they're mountain biking, and they're doing, climbing up those waterfalls, it's like, everything looked pretty cool, except for that little bit of hypothermia a couple of those guys dealt with once they were swimming in those cold pools up at the high elevation.
Yeah, the hypothermia and the lack of sleep would probably be my downfall.
Yeah.
But
I hear you.
Those New Zealand guys were amazing, man. They just cruised through like machines. I don't think they took hardly any sleep.
And they also were just so relaxed. Like when they were paddling out in the middle of the ocean at the end and their boat started sinking, and they played that clip of them calling in a mayday, because they were in the dark in the ocean. And the guy was just like, well, we're taking on what? I mean, the way he said it was like, we're taking on water. So this is a mayday, like calm. I would have been like, mayday, motherfucker, we're going down. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I know.
Get your ass out of here. And they were just like, and then they just dropped him off on that rock and they just chilled till they brought another boat. It's like that a level of like just calm in the midst of chaos was so impressive.
Yeah, they had some Barack Obama.
They did with no sleep too. It's like the combination of like physical fatigue and no sleep, and then your boat's sinking and it's pitch dark, and they were just like chilled out. I'm like, well, they deserve to win. I mean, if you can pull all that off, that's so. Oh, I'm so excited for you guys.
Yeah, well, if we get in, I mean, for the one they just did that was on TV, they had 1,000 applications and they took 66 teams, and obviously because of the show, a lot more people, it generated a lot of interest. So now there's 5,000 applications for probably roughly the same amount of teams. So we'll see if we get in.
But they're going to review people. I mean, I bet there's a lot of people who don't like experience. Why do you have to write down all of your experience and kind of where you're coming from?
Yeah. They had like a 3-page questionnaire with like 30 questions. They wanted to know what your racing background is, how many races that you've done that were longer than 24 hours, if you've done, other adventure races. I had a lot of questions like that. And then you have to make a Zoom video. So all 5 of us, the 4 team members and our crew member had to get on and do like a 10 to 15 minute video, talk about who we are, why we want to do the race, what our experience is. So,
awesome.
And, cool. Energetic and, hopefully grab their attention.
Fingers crossed. I would love to know somebody who does that race, and we will for sure have you guys on our show and hear about it because I'm so into that.
Actually, one guy on our team started doing all this like networking, and he actually met Iron Cowboy, and
Oh,
been
cool.
emailing back and forth with him, kind of hitting him up for tips and tricks and stuff.
Oh, awesome.
So we have a connection to him and his team, and they've entered again. They're going back because they want to try and perform better now. I mean, they finished, but now they want to try and actually compete for, top 10 or whatever, podium.
Yeah, those are, again, it's just like triathlon. There's like the people who are elite and have it dialed and they're racing. And then there was everyone else who was just trying to like make the cutoffs and stay upright. So
he said Iron Cowboy's biggest tip was to know your navigation. That was their biggest downfall. I don't know if you remember in that one part where they're all those groups got together with the one guy who somehow knew how to read the map. And there was like, I seemed like there was like 10 teams all kind of just following the one guy who knew how to get him back on course. Cause I think they all did.
Course. Yeah. They were, remember, because one of them hiked in a circle and they were like, we're back at
they were pissed at their navigator too. Poor guy.
That's awesome.
Well, unfortunately, we have to wrap it up now, but we want to have you back, Tim. This is a lot of fun. I know there's a lot of stuff that we still want to ask you. Until then, where can people find you? Where can people find your book to buy it?
Okay, well, I have a website, and it's www.ultratimdavis.com. And it has links to where you can buy my book, which is available on Amazon, Apple Books, Indie Books, Book Depository, Barnes and Noble. And it's available in paperback, ebook, or Kindle, and audiobook. I don't know about you guys, but I love audiobooks when I'm out there training.
Love it.
I can work out and read a book or listen to a book.
My number one way to do it. It's awesome.
Yeah. And then my social media handles are on my website. My Instagram is tripolar_Tim, and my Facebook and Twitter are under UltraTimDavis1.
Awesome. And we'll put all this information in the show notes as well, listeners. So you can hit him up, order his book, buy his book, listen to his book, and check out his social media.
Yeah, my social media is a combination of either bragging about my kids or bragging about my workouts, mostly.
Perfect.
Isn't that what all us athletes do? Like, hey, I just did this 10-mile run or whatever.
100%.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you, Tim, for spending your time with us this morning. Really appreciate it. This is fun. This is really fun. So I appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Mike and Lindsay. This is
Thank
fun.
you.
All right, everyone. Until next week, we'll see you later, Age Groupies.
Bye. Alrighty, that concludes today's episode of the Age Groupies Podcast with me, Lindsay Hiken, and my co-host, Mike Ergo. We really hope you enjoyed it. You can follow the show on Instagram at Age Groupies, join our Age Groupies page on Facebook, and look us up by name, Lindsay Hiken and Mike Ergo on Strava. If you have questions, comments, or topic ideas, feel free to email us at agegroupies@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please leave a rating and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, as this really helps us get more exposure while we try to grow this little venture. And of course, if you have friends you think might like the show, please be sure to share it with them. But for now, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next week.